arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, staff. I'd welcome everyone for today's meeting of the Ordinary Council of the 22nd of June 2021. I'd firstly like to acknowledge to country. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Darumbal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to their neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gangaloo people, Nation people, the Barada, Kabalbara and Yetamarala people, and I also acknowledge that the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is in the Torres Straits but who live and work on Aboriginal land. Thank you, councillors. Do we have any apologies? No, we have a full complement. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillors, could I see a mover and a seconder to the accuracy of those? Move Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest in matters on the agenda, councillors. We have quite a few there, so we might walk through those as we do. First one there, Councillor Rutherford. Would you like to speak to that one?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's item 8.3 and it's money from the Councillor Discretionary Fund. I'm requesting money be given to the Victoria Park Gymnastics and Trampoline Club for lighting of a spotlight for the car park there. I declare an interest in that I coach voluntarily at the club, and I will leave the meeting for the discussion and the vote.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Another conflict of interest. It's regarding 9.17, which is in the additional agenda. Mount Morgan Water Supply Security, and it talks about carting water to Mount Morgan in this one. And my nephew's got a contract. He's a partner in a business. Contract to supply, to cart the drinking water to Mount Morgan, and my brother's actually driving the truck, so I'd just like to deal with it by leaving when we talk about the Mount Morgan water supply, because there's money involved.
Yep, okay,
Thanks.
No worries. And councillor, that brings us on to my conflict. I have a conflict with item 9.16, the Local Government Association of Queensland, the 25 to 27 October annual conference. I received 2 complimentary tickets to the Local Government Association of Queensland, from the Local Government Association of Queensland for myself and my wife to attend the 2021 Beef Gala Ball on Saturday the 8th of May, valued at $500, over $500. I believe that I was there on a civic role, but I will ask the table to determine whether I participate in the decision on the matter about the conference allocation. So, if that's okay, will I need to step out? I'll hand over to. I'll stay in the meeting. I'll ask the deputy mayor to adjudicate on that role. If that's okay. Yep. Yes, to do it now.
Okay, councillors, look. Personally, there, I don't believe that the mayor has a conflict with that particular issue. And I would like to move that the mayor doesn't and remain in the meeting. Seek a seconder, Councillor Wickerson. Anyone opposed? There. All those in favour, and that's carried unanimously of the councillors. So Councillor Fisher, Mathers, Wickerson, Rutherford, Smith, Kirkland and Latcham all voted in the positive. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Chair. If I may just make comment, this is another illustration of just how ridiculous and complicated and grey the areas of our conflict of interest are. This is definitely something that comes into a civic duty, and I don't think there would be a person in the community that would think that the Mayor's attendance at such a significant event is something that should be gauged by whether or not he received complimentary tickets. I think that it's just the fact that we're sitting here voting on this is just yet again another demonstration of a system failure. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkland. I think we all probably feel the same way with the frustration.
Okay, well, thanks very much, councillors. We'll move on with the agenda items and move on to public deputations and forums is nil, presentation petitions nil. Councillor and delegate reports. We'll move on to item 8.1, leave of absence for Councillor Neil Fisher from the 7th to the 20th of July 2021 inclusive. I'm happy to move as recommended, and Councillor Wickerson second. I'll put that. Councillors, those in favour? Carried, thank you. Move on to 8.2, Councillor discretionary fund application for Councillor Shane, Councillor Latcham, the Rockhampton horse riding for the disabled. I'm happy to move as recommended. Seek a seconder. Councillor Smith. We'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 8.3, Councillor discretionary fund application for... Oh, sorry, Councillor Rutherford, you were out of this one. I was on a roll there. Okay, moving on to that one now. Councillor discretionary fund for Councillor Rutherford for the Victoria Park Gymnastic Trampoline Club. Can I have a mover? Move Councillor Wickerson. Second, Councillor Latcham. Put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We'll invite Councillor Rutherford back to the meeting. Oh, for that one? Yeah, that one. Yes, it was a unanimous vote. It was Councillor Fisher, Councillor Mathers. Oh, unanimous. It's right. Okay, Councillor Rutherford, you're right. It was unanimous anyway. So it was. Item 8.4, discretionary fund application, again from Councillor Rutherford for the Ridgelands and District Sporting Agricultural Association Incorporated. Have a mover and a seconder with regards to that application. Move Councillor Rutherford, second Councillor Mathers. Put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Motion was carried. Item 8.5. Councillor Kirkland, Donna Kirkland, with an application for Rockhampton Relay for Life for the Cancer Council. Question, Councillor Kirkland?
Yes, just wanting to flag there. I'm not quite sure whether it's a conflict or not, that I've had historical relations with Relay for Life in the past. 4 years ago, I was their president. No?
Not currently a...
No.
Committee member?
No.
I don't believe there's a conflict there. Again, it's a great and worthy cause, that. Move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Latcham. I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, Officers' Reports, Advance Rockhampton. 9.1, sponsorship of welcome reception to the NEDC 2021. Greg, would you like to speak to that report, please?
Morning, Mayor and councillors. So I gauged an opportunity for us, this being a national conference, and very much our focus being on economic development going forward. We held this conference in 2018, I believe, in Rockhampton, so we won't get it back for a little while yet. So I gauged this as an opportunity for us to make a bit more bang for our buck in the region within Queensland, to continue, as you know, on the journey of putting Rocky on the radar out there across multiple markets. So I saw there were 3 exclusive opportunities, one being the platinum sponsor, which was $20,000, one being the formal dinner, which was $10,000, and this one, which I thought was a better bang for our buck and also less bucks at $5,000 for this. I feel with an opening ceremony, if it was closing ceremony, I'd be worried. Opening ceremonies, you do tend to get a large number of delegates attend those. And I just felt because of the style of conference with economic development professionals sitting mostly in sessions, that a trade exhibition, other than having to staff that as well, was just a better value for our money being part of this, but also making sure that we're on the national stage as a serious economic development player. So I hope the rest of the report explains itself. Excuse me.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Greg. And yes, strike while the iron's hot, I believe, while there's great economic movement in the region. I think it's a great opportunity there to promote the Rockhampton and our assets of what we got here and our capabilities.
And may I add, Mayor, probably a little bit cheeky as well for me to for us to sponsor the welcome ceremony in Mackay, but they welcomed that with open arms when I spoke to them recently. So they like the regional collaboration side of it.
I think that's it goes a long way of the positioning of council with that collaboration, and I think that's we find that there is a greater acknowledgement now when we approach those other councils and regions. I see a couple of lights on, so I'll go to some questions. Councillor Kirkland, then Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you, Greg, I just want to say congratulations on choosing this particular option. I can see your thought process around that and agree 100%, better bang for buck. And congratulations on all that you're doing. I note that we've had some feedback filtered back through to us about some advertising that you chose to do down at a particular airport, and well done. So I look forward to having feedback coming to us that Rockhampton were well represented at this function. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkland. If through you, Mayor, if I could, the one part I didn't add as well, it does include a conference delegate registration as well, which obviously we would have attended this conference anyway. So you sort of factor that into the budget equation as well. So.
Yeah. It reduces it when there's a ticket included there, Greg. Councillor Wickerson, question?
Yep, thank you, Mr Chair. Through you, Greg, does this also include a presentation by you? Like, do you get a speaking gig at it as well as? Is that part of the package?
Formally, no, Councillor Wickerson, but I've already started to work with the committee to convince them that one pull-up banner, some videos and a speech is not really enough, that I want more than that. So by the time we get there, I'm hoping we will have our videos, we will have multiple pull-up banners and a speech from me as well to make sure we represent us as a region. That's
okay,
sure.
well done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wickerson. No further questions. Can I seek a mover and a second with regards to that recommendation? Councillor Smith and seconded Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour, against, carried. Straight over to you again, Greg. 9.2, the amendment to the tender consideration for plan for the billboards and digital signage.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And this is the third time this has been to Council Chamber. We continue to grow this list. So it came in 2018 and again December last year. So the list of names you can see there, because you don't have the formal reports, basically right down to Georgie Marketing were already approved by this chamber. Anything under Stockland Trust and down have been added this time around. What this is about is, I'm sure you're aware that billboards can be very unique in their style, certainly very unique in their locations along the way. Councillor Kirkland's comment on the previous report is very relevant. By having this set up from a tender consideration plan has given us the flexibility to quickly move into Canberra Airport because I knew estimates were coming up and I quickly booked those airport locations so that we could be in the face of decision makers, whether those be politicians or businesses in general, that they're down there for estimates this month. It also allowed us to move quickly into the Mackay market for the resources conference, and it also allowed us to move quickly into the Townsville market when we got a sniff that they might get the Origin. So I suppose I'm embellishing probably the benefits of this consideration plan, but that did allow us over this last couple of months to achieve a lot by having that plan approved by you.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Questions, Councillor Smith?
Oh, just a comment, Mr Mayor. I remember when Bishop Billboards came to Rocky, the first ones that ever wanted to put a huge sign up on the corner of Fitzroy and East, and it caused a lot of discussion and controversy, and Main
Change.
Roads didn't like it, but our planners put it through. And
Ordered, yep.
look what's happened since. All the different ones have come on board, you know, and I think it's great. We look like a city now with all the signs. So yeah, can't get enough of them.
Through you,
things
Mayor,
change.
I agree.
Yeah, it's, the sky was going to fall in at one part there, but anyway, never the such. Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, I have to agree with Councillor Smith. Look, it was worth going through the process at the start, but it does actually work really well. Probably the other comment I'd like to make, Warren Inch probably will not send you a Christmas card this year. He is so upset about being trumped at Canberra Airport.
I'll leave the Christmas cards for you guys. I'm here to make a few friends, but along the way I'm sure there will be people like that.
Question, Councillor Kirkland.
Just a comment. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say that with all of the exclusion of newspapers and those types of advertising that we've previously capitalised on to get the message out there, these signboards are becoming even more important for us to direct people to the platforms where they can get the information that they need. So absolutely 100% support this.
That's right, it's quite prudent as our demographics and things change going forward within that space. So I think we still need a workshop on the whole way forward with the changes, but this is one of the pieces to that puzzle for sure. Okay, Councillor, if there are no further questions, can I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to the officer's recommendation? Seconded Councillor Fisher, move Councillor Fisher, seconded Councillor Mathers. I'll put those in favour. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Moving on to item 9, the officer's report, 9.3, or is it 9.1? 9.3, sorry. Councillor Wickerson, did you want to talk to it at all, or are you happy for the officer?
Oh, just briefly, Mr Mayor, if I may. Absolutely support this application. If you look at the report there, this is, I think, 8 or 9 events over a period of 2.5 weeks. So it's celebrating our South Sea Islander community. If you've been down to Joscilly and that area, you can just see it's a vibrant community, and also within Rockhampton itself too. So this is a great way for the whole community to come together and celebrate that presence.
Councillors, before we go to the recommendation, I believe we've covered the full $10,000 for this application. I think it's one that really shows the support from our council with the South Sea Islander community. It's one that building those relationships and partnering with them in such a special occasion for them would be seen as a great step forward on behalf of the council. So I believe that we change that to the full amount. Alicia, would you like to speak to the report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. This application has been made, I think Councillor Wickerson just mentioned, it's a celebration that's over 2.5 weeks. I believe the nature of the community and the celebrations will be that there's significant travellers that do come to town and enjoy our region. So that sort of heavily weights this application to get it over the line. Happy to take any questions.
No, that's all right.
Happy to take any questions, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Alicia. Councillor, I see no questions there. I'll seek a mover in a second with regards to this report. Move Councillor Kirkland, second Councillor Wickerson. I'll put those in favour. Against? Carried. Thanks, councillors. Moving on to the next item, it's 9.4, Community Assistance Program, major sponsorship application for the Women That Fish Barra Classic Incorporated. Alicia, did you want to speak to this one?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, so this is a fishing competition for women, which is excellent, but it's the nature of the event that it should draw in people from around the country to do that. There was some concerns yesterday that the purchasing for this event was all outside the region, which is not the case. I just had a review of the applications, the quotations this morning, and some of those certainly are local. Again, our weighting criteria is heavily weighted around, the promotion and how widely these things are promotion for our region, as well as how those people that are coming into town to participate how many nights they'll stay. So this one certainly ticks those boxes, and therefore the recommendation for the $10,000.
Okay, just before I go to questions, I'll just make a comment there. Though we've focused through the recreational fishing development strategy to promote recreational fishing in the region since the removal of the nets, and part of that strategy is about encouraging fishing competitions on the river and highlighting the Fitzroy as a fishing mecca, not only through those competitions but through the infrastructure and the whole strategy that we've been working towards, and part of that is supporting these groups as well. So just put that out there before we go to questions. But in due concerns or any issues there, I'm happy to hear. Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, a question to Alicia and then a comment, if I may. Yep. Alicia, have we got any idea how many people from outside they're saying will come? Because it says 120 participants, so there's no indication at all from numbers of visitors.
Back through the chair, I would have to take that on notice. Let me just have a quick look. Was there another comment while I'm looking?
Yeah, there is. Councillor Latcham, did you want to make a question?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I guess it's about the application itself. If council was to approve the $10,000, then overall they make a $5,000 profit, and I'd probably like to suggest that we just change it to a $5,000 amount, not the $10,000 amount, so it balances and they can still hold the event. I think the event is very significant, but I'm not sure why council would need to give money to make a $5,000 profit.
I don't think that's in the policy to say whether there's a profit made prohibits it. Again,
no.
I'll ask that question to Alicia.
Yeah, just to respond back to that, Councillor Latcham, one part of the consideration is around value for money. It's not unreasonable for these organisations to make some profit out of events, because that then gives them the capital to work and to set up those events for the next year. So it hasn't actually ruled things out previously that events would make a profit. Also, Mr Mayor, just following back...
Sorry, Lisa, just further on that, and that's the idea is to help these events be standalone without any seeking support. If they can generate enough revenue to come back, then why do they need to come to council for support?
Just supplementary if I may, Mr Mayor. Yeah. Have we sponsored this previously, like last year or the year before?
Yes.
So that goes against that argument you're just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have. We have. I'm not sure what the balance is at the end of the day. Sorry, Lisa, did you have something more?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just in respect of the numbers, so they have made no reference to how many visitors they're expecting from out, but they have sort of made mention that it'll be from Northern Territory and New South Wales. Having said that, there's considerable variability at the moment with the way COVID is. I know everyone's a bit uncertain to travel outside the state, so that's also a consideration.
Yeah. Councillor Rutherford?
So, Mr Mayor, the matrix assumes the minute you put something in a matrix about nights accommodation, it alters the amount. So I'm guessing that there's been some assumptions made on very little or no information on our matrix system there. I have absolutely no issues with the event. I do have a concern, the fact that we have sponsored this before and yet there is no money coming back in from that organisation to this event. So it's totally on entry fees and money from council. I also have an issue when an event in a budget charges $120 entry fee but gives away $140 in free gifts, and that's not including the tinny that can be won and the awards. So there's something very, very wrong, and registers a $5,000 profit. So that budget to me just doesn't, stack up.
It's been the one that's been previously, Councillor. It's the one, same process as what we've done, supported it before.
Yes, I don't know, it may be, but
Yeah.
it stood out to me this time, and you know.
Well, I mean, the matrix is
Yeah.
wrong. We've all clearly understand that's the
Yes, but
situation. So,
you still should look at the matrix. Still talks about whether the budget stacks up or not.
Alicia, there's 4 independent people that do an assessment on the applications. If it's been able to get through to support, how's that the case if Councillor Rutherford's
Yeah, so just to respond to that, back through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Rutherford, we do take these applications at face value. We're not, you know, when you say about assumptions for the night stayed, that would be the same for every application that comes through, because there's not always, you know, and we have talked at workshop about actually having some closeout in terms of the acquittals to see the success or otherwise of these events. So just being mindful, councillors, that this is, I guess, the last, as I see it, under the old regime, because we're now about to click over to the financial year. So none of the discussions that we've had in workshop about how we could change this program has yet flowed through to the actual assessment panel. So they have done this assessment based upon, they have done all other applications to be consistent.
And
Mr.
again,
Mayor-
it was the direction of the council to attract more events to the region. But yeah, Councillor Rutherford.
Well, just a question, because it used to be that, and I don't recall it changing, that there were parts of applications where council considered what, in that application, what they would take as things they would cover and things they wouldn't. So equipment they wouldn't cover, uniforms they wouldn't cover. So there was things like that in the policy when the assessment was done, they would go, well, that part, that expense counts, that one doesn't, that does, that does. So that's what used to happen. Is that not happening anymore?
Through
Just,
Alicia.
yeah, just to respond to that one, Mr Mayor. So those items that you speak of, and particularly you raised yesterday around the uniforms, which is not the case, where we consider, I think there was an application where we were paying for team uniforms that were teams that were outside the region. So that's in terms of something that was picked up previously for an application, but there is no wrongs or rights around what is not covered versus covered. So that's within the policy. The other aspect just in this one is if we actually get our promotion onto these shirts, you know, that's good promotional material that will continue to promote Rockhampton as that fishing spot. So it's kind of this form of advertising that you get, and it's not dissimilar to a lot of conferences that you go to in terms of that promotional gear that is given. It's, you know, ongoing advertising.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Rutherford.
I'd like to move that council considers the major sponsorship application for the Women That Fish Barra Classic Incorporated for funding to assist with the staging of the Women That Fish Barra Classic 2021 from 30th of September to 2nd of October 2021, and approves a sponsorship amount of $5,000 towards the event.
Do we have a
And seek
seconder?
a seconder.
Councillor Latcham. Now it's been moved. I'll seek a speaker for the motion.
Mr Mayor, the event is a good event, and I certainly don't have an issue, and it will go ahead no matter what. And I think the $5,000 will allow it to go ahead equally as professionally as it was. There's nothing in here that won't allow. This event's been held before. They've not contributed anything back this year, so whatever was made last year, if anything was made, has not been reinvested into this event. And when you talk about promoting things, you know, $10,000 in signage or whatever will do far more for us than having a logo on a T-shirt, on 120 T-shirts, you know. And so when you weigh up value for money, I don't think giving people $140 free stuff from $120 entry, there would be very few other sports that would ever run that way.
I'll speak against the motion. I believe it's, when you break it down, and this one is where we realise that the matrix is flawed, and we're going through a workshop to try and make it more of a system where we get a better understanding, or rather than just trying to make assumptions. But that said, I believe that trying to do this one as one of the last ones of the financial year shouldn't be in that case. But what I believe is that the $120, it's only a $20 difference. If you're paying a $120 entry fee and you're getting $140 in return, then it's only a $20 increase of what you're paying. But also that the reputation of the Fitzroy River as a fishing destination is the thing that goes out far and wide, and it's the Facebook posts and the stories that continue on from those events that build the reputation of the area as a fishing destination. So it's not only this event that you see the benefit for, and we're focusing in on one event, but it's the wider scale and the benefit that brings to the region, and as far as a fishing destination and to all the businesses and motels and hotels, pubs and restaurants that all benefit when people come in here to take a fishing expedition separate to these. So I believe it's a great promotional one. Not only just and it's not a sporting event. It's a sport in itself, but it's a one-off. It's not a club that operates it on a regular basis compared to other ones. So it is a unique in that space really. So on that turn, I'd support the full amount. But that's my speaking against the recommendation. Another speaker for the recommendation, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And yes, I do support the motion that Councillor Rutherford has put forward, basically on the basis that we're all in support of this event, and the $5,000 will still enable it to happen. So there's kind of, in my mind, there's no justification for the additional $5,000, so as Councillor Rutherford said, to possibly pay for T-shirts, shirts, etc., which I'm not sure that we get good value for the ratepayers. So at the end of the day, I still believe we all support it. We'd like to see it go ahead, and by reducing it to $5,000 won't stop it from happening. Thank you.
Okay, another speaker against, Councillor Fisher.
Yes, Mr Chair. Look, I understand what has been put up as suggestions of why to cut this back, but also understand these events are more than just those that are attending. Every recent fishing event in the Fitzroy River has seen national media. Now, we find that we're getting those promotions that are setting the Fitzroy River up and above our competing barramundi fishing areas, you know, the Corumbas, the Mackays, all of those who have got plans as well. I believe if we support this event like a number of the other fishing events, this brings these as a very high quality event. It does actually then have spin-offs, not just in those who are attending, not just those that are taking motel rooms, but it's also our presence in on the national stage. And I think we need to keep that momentum, because we do have communities like Mackay who are eagerly wanting to actually take our crown. And there are still the communities like in Darwin that are trying to regain their crown as being the best place for Barra. So I urge support to vote against this motion and go back to the original motion.
Okay, another speaker for the motion. No further speakers. Councillor Rutherford, would you like to wrap up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and I appreciate what you're saying, but both speakers against the motion have spoken of it as if we're talking against the event, and we're not. The event will happen, it will go ahead, and we'll support it, and it will be, you know, a very successful event. But when a budget comes through that gives away $14,239 in free souvenirs to the participants, to 120 participants, when we really have no stats on who's coming from out of town, what this is going to do for us, rather than having a great event in town, that's not right. The money we give is to run events and to try and attract people here, that additional $5,000 could go to any other event that brings people to the region. So this is not against the event, it's against the fact that there is items in here that I don't believe the ratepayers should be covering, and that the profit that's this year, if that had been the same as last year, hasn't been reinvested into this event.
Okay, councillors, there's no further debate. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those opposed? Councillors, we'll revert back to the original motion, and then again, we have... I won't... And can I seek a mover and a seconder for the original motion? Move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Mathers. Councillor Kirkland, question?
May I make a comment, or is it too late to do that?
No, you can make a comment. We finished that
The
debate
last
part of
one?
it.
Good, good. I actually spent quite a deal of time looking at this particular application, and I was at first glance a little along the lines of Councillor Rutherford and Latcham as expressed today, but when I sat down and appreciated the existing matrix, putting out of mind the fact that we will be coming back and changing that, I felt that this was an appropriate illustration of how it's so important that we get feedback from the events that we're actually sponsoring to get some kind of gauge as to whether the money that has been invested from the community was returned to them, both from an economic input as much as just a social input. So looking again with those eyes at it again, I looked at the fact that it's been pointed out that Creek to Coast Fishing Show, the magazines, NAFA and Bush and Beach and Fish and Boat, as well as the normal social media and Win News, 7 News and social media would be covering this particular event. I felt that the investment was there for the community to see some kind of feedback with this particular $10,000 grant. It validated itself. If those magazines deliver advertising and promotion of this event in our area, I truly believe it's going to come back to us tenfold. It's also an event that's predominantly to promote women fishing. It's something that previously, for many years, has been a male-dominated exposure, and it's lovely to see that there is an opportunity for women to get this exposure in the community, and certainly encourage young women fishermen to get out there and be involved. So I'm looking forward to the feedback from this event that will validate whether or not it receives any contribution from us in the future.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Can we have a mover and a seconder for the... Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry, we've got a mover and a seconder. So, Councillor Rutherford, question? Yep.
If the money had have been used for fishing rods to give someone an opportunity to learn to fish that hadn't, if it had have been to hire extra tinnies for people to do that, I would not have had an issue at all.
Councillor, yep. Councillor Wickerson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to underscore what Councillor Kirkland said too, this highlights why we need to review the process and tighten it up where it needs to be. And we've raised this a number of times now, how many of the visitors are from out of town, because there's a different multiplier for that. Can we see the data that comes back from the events rather than just a supposition that's going to be successful? So there's a range of things, and I think we've covered that. So this being the last one is a good thing, I think, and from now on we'll tighten that process up.
Yeah,
pretty
no,
firmly,
I get that. It's probably a good example of why we need to fix it. Probably last one before we go to the vote. Just we do have other competitions, as Councillor Fisher mentioned, in rivalry. In the Boyne Tenham Hawk Up, I think the prize money there is quite substantial, and you look at that as one of Australia's major events. It gives things that are in, when you pay your purchase ticket, you get a lot more in return than what you do for your ticket, is my understanding. But again, we're in competition with other areas for those those types of things. So it's about the reputation that we've got in building that reputation. Anyway, that said, we've got a mover and a seconder with the recommendation. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those against? Would you wish to record? Record Councillor Rutherford and Councillor Latcham report their vote against the motion.
Mr Mayor, may I make a comment just after when I first read this and thought, well, how can
We might move on, Councillor. We've done that.
Well, it was actually a side issue to that, but not actually the vote. I wonder if we actually had a challenge as part of that of sort of Mackay and Rockhampton or Gladstone and Rockhampton, and actually have a shield, maybe even our lady councillors there challenging the lady councillors of Mackay and Gladstone as part of that tournament.
That's a real conflict of interest.
Okay, Councillor, we might move on to item 9.5, the contract for the operation and management of the Mount Morgan Rail Museum and Visitor Information Centre. Councillors, John, did you wish to speak to that? Councillor Wickerson?
Through the Chair, good morning, everybody. Here we've got a report recommending the reissuing of the contract for the Mount Morgan Rail Museum and Visitor Information Centre. In summary, in 2018, Rockhampton Regional Council contracted the operation and management of the Mount Morgan Rail Museum to a community-based organisation. This contract's due for renewal. The recommendation you see is that pursuant to Section 235A and Section 235B for the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council resolves that it's satisfied there's only one supplier who is reasonably available, and that because of the specialised nature of the services that are sought, it would be impractical for Council to invite quotes for the management and operation of the site. And two, to enter into a contract for the operation and the management of the Mount Morgan Rail Museum and Visitor Information Centre with Mount Morgan Promotion and Development Incorporated for a period of 3 years commencing on the 1st of July 2021 as detailed in the report. I'm sure you've probably all read the commentary there. Part of the background is that this relationship commenced in 2003, and as it's moved along, there is recognition that the Mount MPAD was also fulfilling the role of Visitor Information Centre out of the one location, which is nice and central, and I think a good, it provides economies of scale for that one site. You can see that recently that action and where they were doing the Visitor Information Centre was formalised in a letter about a year ago, and the intention of this contract here is to continue that relationship where they act as both the Visitor Information Centre and maintain the Mount Morgan Rail Museum. The fees we're recommending just to move forward with CPI as the most recent fees, and take questions if you would like.
Thanks, John. Questions, Councillor Latcham?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you. Just more of a comment, just to say what a marvellous facility it is, and the service it offers in Mount Morgan as a visitor information centre, and you've supplied some attendance numbers that I've had privilege to see, and it really stacks up. It's really such an asset to the council and to the region to have this facility, and I'm fully supportive of this.
Thanks, Councillor Latcham. Councillor Wickerson?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, also fully in support of this. It's such a diverse range of skills that whoever manages the place will need to possess, not only running a very interesting museum with a range of artefacts and history there, but also concurrently running a visitor information centre. So I think the likelihood of finding anyone else who could possibly do that is unlikely, so I absolutely support as moved.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Smith?
Oh, probably just a question and a comment about it. Absolutely support this recommendation, but I probably talked about this a few years ago. Need exciting signs to show people where the Tourist Information Centre is. There might be one at the first, I know there's two turn-offs to it, and I know the second turn-off doesn't have a very exciting sign, so if they missed the first one, they could see the second one. I think we need to spend some money and put some really good signs up there, because I see caravans going past my place all the time, and they're going up there obviously, but I think we know where the railway station is, but they don't, where the information is. And I think a few people in Mount Morgan would prefer to see it in the main street, but I think it should remain where it is because it's nice and secluded place where they can, you know, walk their dog or have morning tea if they want to, etc. It's a great place, but I think we're not selling it to our tourists enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Wickerson, happy to move.
Yes, Mr Mayor, but also to add on what Councillor Smith said, we now have heritage as part of the community's portfolio title, and in due course and as soon as we can, to maybe put a promotional package around not only council assets that have a heritage theme, but also some of our commercial activities, you know, Dreamtime and maybe even the caves, Capricorn Caves outside area, but just to let people know that there is a range of things that they could do a whole heritage tour and pick up these places when resources allow.
That's right, and also that the Driver Revive is up there as well, so it's another key component of it, again, making people aware that that facility's there. Okay, we have a move of Councillor Wickerson. Do we have a second of Councillor Rutherford? I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, John. I'll move into the next item, item 9.6. Thanks, John.
Through the Chair, thank you. Here we have another very similar report requesting that we contract the Archer Park Rail Museum to the Archer Park Station and Steam Museum Incorporated Friends. Same clause again, that the council satisfied there's only one supplier who's reasonably available, etc., and that to enter into a contract for the operation and management of Archer Park Rail Museum with the Friends of Archer Park Station and Steam Tram Museum Incorporated for 3 years. There's a slightly different in this commentary here. There's one thing to note that we've been in communication with the committee, and they've asked that their fee be increased annually, not quarterly, up to a value of $15,000 per annum. The information that they've supplied to us is it's becoming increasingly challenging for them to maintain the services, but also maintain the National Office of Rail Safety accreditation. One difference between Archer Park and Mount Morgan Rail Museum is that Archer Park Rail Museum Association maintain certification as track operators and rolling stock operators in order to operate the Purry Steam Tram, which is the asset that we've got there. That does take very significant work to undertake. They employ a part-time staff member to make sure not only are they open the hours that they're open, but also to ensure that they're able to keep that certification. It is quite onerous. When these decisions were made to outsource the operation of both these sites, Council was very keen for both sites to have this certification. The only one that was able to achieve that was Archer Park Rail Museum, and it takes serious commitment from a workplace health and safety and operational standard in order to achieve that. You'll see in the content of the report I've said that we'd be granted permission to negotiate an increase of up to $15,000 a year per annum. My intention in that wording is that if there's opportunities for us to provide a reasonable amount of support that may be alternative to cash, it may be for this site not passing on electricity costs, it may be not passing on water costs, I would approach that in consultation with the rest of council who manage tenancies and sites to make sure that we can come to something that's reasonably consistent in the way that we approach that. So, and look, they, along with Archer Park, have done a very good job. They're also quite committed to trying to diversify their income streams as much as possible. They've run the place as a small function and training centre during other hours, so I'll just leave this report to the table for consideration.
Thanks, John. Councillors, questions? Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Something in my throat. Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is one of those ones where I'm a little bit concerned, and I guess when we see reports coming in days before the contract expires, I have concerns about that, where we should be given a lot more notice and given a lot more options to consider. Having said that, one of my concerns is it's only open 24 hours a week to the public, whereas the Mount Morgan one's double that. It's 49 hours a week. The costs are different between Mount Morgan and the Archer Park one. The ones at Archer Park are significantly dearer than and is that stopping people from going? I know the attendance numbers are fairly healthy, but they're the two concerns I have in particular. We're only open half the time compared to the other museum, Mount Morgan, and is it an opportunity to look at, do we put in a position, a council position, a paid position? Would that be a cheaper option or a more affordable option, or more viable option? I'm sure the coordinator there does a great job, but should it be a paid job at over $100,000 a year? Surely a paid person is a better option, I would have thought.
CEO, did you want to respond to that one? It's not a cheaper option.
Not a cheaper option for us, Councillor Latcham.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Even though it's only 24 hours a day, 24 hours a week.
Council made so just a bit of history. This is a fallout from the de-amalgamation. So we used to have a paid position up at Mount Morgan, and we had a service provided down here as a part of the de-amalgamation costs. We lost both of those positions out of council. It would cost more than that to actually put a staff member in there and have that on cost and the overheads. Also, Mount Morgan, they're offering two services, and please correct me, John, if I'm wrong. So they're providing both the experience through the Mount Morgan Rail Museum plus also the promotion, whereas down this one is just the rail. So there's two different parts to it. So.
Through the chair, certainly I take your comment about the timing of it, so certainly there. The other thing to note is when you have a look at the contracts, council took a reasonably light touch about what reporting needs to come back, what the expectations are, because they're not-for-profit organisations. The other thing to be aware of, what works so well and I guess at the perception there might be more activity at Mount Morgan Rail Museum, is MPAD, the organisation that we have that with, also run the Argus or their newsletter out of there. So I can certainly understand what you're saying. One of the things that you might notice that I've worded within the reports is that we're going to put a bit more work into also how we support them about our historic collections, which are part of that process. So I'm very happy to, I guess, raise your concerns about what we can do to get as much value as possible out of the two sites there, Councillor.
This might help Councillor Latcham. Would the Friends be able to do more than the 24 hours, John?
They may be able to do that, and that's and I guess the why I've put in we can negotiate the potential increase. That's one of the things that we can work through. I mean, within the past 6 months of everybody, I guess, coming back on board from a COVID perspective, there is a lot of uncertainty, particularly in those areas, and can they be maintained being open? But always, I think the balance of trying to get the best outcome for the income that we're spending will certainly be what we work for.
Yep. Councillor Latcham.
Mr Mayor, through you, John, I guess the missing link, I guess, was we weren't aware that there was another paid person being employed to look after stuff. So I just got the impression it's just a paid coordinator and the rest are all volunteers. They're all friends of the village.
Friends of Archer Park, yes, it's a paid part-time coordinator. They're not full-time. And because it's their relationship and their books and their business, we be guided as to how much direction we need to give them for their operation.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Wickerson, then Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Just some comments. John, correct me, obviously, even if the place is open 24 hours a week, that the volunteers would spend a lot more time there when it's not open to the public. There's a huge amount of maintenance to be done. And as we pointed out in the report, the difference between there and Mount Morgan is you've got that live track element, which in its own right adds a lot more complexity. But then on top of that, again, it's live steam, which is another thing. Again, it's not running a diesel loco up in there. So that's a whole lot of other ticketing and qualifications to keep up. So that just the skill set involved in that is a whole different thing compared to
that is correct. And my understanding, when we withdrew, when council had to pull out of the services there, council made the decision that we would not, from a cost perspective, undertake the work of being certified for rail and track operation. So I guess this mechanism and this process has been through the flexibility that a not-for-profit organisation has and the commitment of their association supported by a part-time paid coordinator, they can achieve that outcome to have that tram running. So, and they take that commitment very seriously, and council through this relationship do have the benefit of that steam tram running. So that's the way it's working at the moment, yeah.
Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I think what a wonderful facility that we have here that's run by both volunteers and, of course, as we've established, a couple of paid members, but the passion that these people have to turn up and to look after all of this equipment and to maintain it and to meet the requirements of that within the current management agreement, to balance those dollars out and still want to do all of that hard work. I applaud these volunteers, and I think it's a fabulous facility. I do just want to ask, though, I note that you've highlighted within your report, John, that there's that request from the Friends of Archer Park to see if we can negotiate that operation and management fee to the tune of around 15,000 extra per year, per annum. What type of change to the admission fees would that reflect? Can you help me out? No idea?
I'm not aware of that at the moment. We haven't worked it out, but we can certainly negotiate that. I believe the intention would be certainly not for it to increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
good.
And through the chair, my understanding is the information that we receive without revealing all of their documentation is they've had to be delving into their retained earnings in order over the past couple of years to maintain the level of service.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Through you, Mr Chair, if I may then, is it necessary for us then to reflect in the motion somewhere there about that dollar figure, or is that open to negotiation?
I think we could have a further report that comes back, and I believe it's an opportunity for councillors to do a inspection, do an on-site inspection just for the new councillors to look at both Mount Morgan and Archer Park as part of a on-the-bus tour. So it'll be one that'll give us a great opportunity. But then from that, a further report come back about how that what options were available through that other funding mechanism there. So we'll just add at a further dot point that we do that as well.
Sure. Okay, that'll accommodate that then.
Councillor Smith?
Oh, yeah, just a comment, Mr Mayor. I know we went through a lot of pain to hand it over to the volunteers. It wasn't an easy thing, you know, and I think, well, if they don't do it, who's going to do it?
Exactly.
Who's going to pick it up? And they've got the passion, they've got the knowledge now, and they just live it, you know? And I think, gee, we owe them a lot more than what we're paying them, really, but for the tourist part of it, you know? And it's advertised. Look, I go into Boldy Locals and someone's put it on there, you know, they've got people, or they're doing it themselves. They're promoting themselves all the time, and half the stuff that they talk about, I didn't even realise that they did.
Yeah. Councillor, we just added a further point or item there too, that site inspection be undertaken by councillors and then a further report provided on the additional operation options. So that's something there we consider at that time. Councillor, I think there are no further questions to John. I'll seek a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Wickenden, second Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Councillors, we might take a 15-minute recess and come back at 10:15. Thank you.
ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
We'll resume the meeting, or wait there, it's good to go. Right, Councillor, we'll resume the meeting and move on to item 9.7 and ask Bevan to present the report on the development application for a material change of use for the keeping of animals, horse training for 4 horses. Thank you, Bevan.
Is that on? Yep. So yeah, like you said, animal keeping for horse training purposes, up to 4 horses. That's at our 24 Murphy Road, Cabra. So the proposal includes construction of a unenclosed shade structure. It'll be approximately 1,200 square metres in size, and access to the structure will be via an existing driveway to Murphy Road. So the application was required to be presented to you today because the nature of the use is rural, but the zone is medium impact industry. Land in the surrounding area east and west is also in this zone. That's along Boongarry and Murphy Road. However, land north and south is in the rural zone. Despite the varied zones though, existing land uses in the area are predominantly houses with separate associated rural uses, with only a couple of small-scale industrial uses occurring. So the site is designated in a future industrial area in the strategic framework in the planning scheme. However, it's noted the existing industrial area of Gracemere around the township still has a number of unutilised parcels, which, unlike the subject site, these parcels have access to council infrastructure services such as sewer and water. So from a sequencing point of view, it's anticipated that these sites will be utilised well before the subject site will be a viable option. The development doesn't involve a sensitive land use and it's not anticipated to be detrimental to industrial development, establishing, expanding or intensifying in the surrounding area, or even on the balance of the subject site itself, which is over 46 hectares. No submissions were received against the application. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Okay, thanks, Bevan. Councillors? Councillor Smith?
Just to comment, Mr Mayor, normally these types of activities are carried out on a rural property anyway, and if you look at the map, it looks close to houses in Cabra, but there's actually a big hill between them and those residences. But yeah, I can see their point in getting the application through because it is industrial area, and they had to do the same to actually get their house as well. But I'm sure that it will be done professionally and look pretty good.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, once again, I support the application. I think it makes sense in this area. Just a comment or a question maybe is that are the applicants aware that it is medium in, so in the future they could have something beside them that maybe isn't compatible to horse training and
Yeah, they are aware of it. They actually got a house approved there a few years ago before this. So that was them setting up the site, and they had to go through the same process through council as well. So they are aware of that, and I guess the way they could look at it as well, like it presents opportunities down the track for them when those, future industrial area does go there, and presumably you could even repurpose this structure. You could have trucks parked there, enclose it, maybe make it so it has that ability as well. So I guess in the interim for them it's going to be tricky. They're going to have to go through these processes, but down the track it may present opportunities to them as well. So.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Move Councillor Smith, seeker seconder. Councillor Rutherford, I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.8, the Local Authority Waste Management Advisory Committee, LAWMAC membership. Michael, would you like to talk to the report, and Councillor Latcham as the portfolio chair? Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. So the purpose of this report is just to provide council really with an update on the status of LAWMAC, the proposal to transition LAWMAC to an incorporated association, and to also seek endorsement for council to continue to be a member of LAWMAC once it becomes an incorporated association. So currently LAWMAC is actually a subcommittee of the Northern Alliance of Councils, which, based on a decision made late last year by those member councils in the Northern Alliance of Councils, they're actually changing their name and constitution and looking to become the Regional Queensland Council of Mayors. Therefore, as a result, LAWMAC sort of finds itself in a position where it really has no legal existence once that change takes place. So the LAWMAC executive, Councillor Fisher being the chair of that exec, have had many conversations on how they're going to ensure that LAWMAC has an ongoing existence, and it becoming an incorporated association is currently the preferred and suggested approach. So still a little bit to do in terms of going down that path, currently reviewing the draft rules that LAWMAC would operate under, which would be based on the model rules under the Associations Incorporation Act. And I would expect that at a later date, we would come back to council once those rules are final and before accepted. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Michael. Councillors, comments?
Councillor Latcham? Just to support Mr. Mayor, what Michael's talking about. So at the Cairns meeting, this was discussed and forwarded to get to the next stage under the Associations Incorporation Act, and it's just to progress through it. So LAWMAC's very, very informative. It's very vital for where we're heading as a council to understand and work in collaboration with all the other Northern Alliance councils. And I'd also like to add on, just if Councillor Fisher's got anything further he'd like to add to that.
Councillor Fisher? Yeah,
I was probably, just because I was chairman of the group, I thought I wouldn't make comment, but Mr. Mayor, if that's okay, I'm happy to. Look, some of the benefits that being part of LAWMAC has sort of seen is even just some of the opportunities that Rockhampton Regional Council has had with funding opportunities and trials and just like our organics trial at the moment. But even just some of our smaller councils, at the last meeting, Paintback, which we've embraced here in Rockhampton, our neighbouring councils, Livingston, Banana, cannot even access that. And we've taken that on board to actually go to Paintback and to their Chief Executive Officer and to say, well, look, this is something that has benefit to all local authorities. And CQ Rock local authorities, Gladstone and Rockhampton, are not CQ Rock. there are other councils. So on behalf of LawMac, we went and actually challenged them to where they have admitted that they haven't been doing as to what their charter and their funding agreements with the federal government. So we can actually do a lot of good, not just for the ratepayers of Rockhampton, which we are definitely getting a lot of benefit. We're actually doing a lot for our region, which in turn has a lot of benefit for our region. And this is happening, you know, in the Mackay, the Townsville, the Cairns areas as well. So it is a lot of benefit, not only for elected members, but also there for officers. So it's been sort of something that I have to admit is, you know, kind of got thrown under the bus after the last election. I was the last man standing on the executive of LawMac, so that's why I kind of ended up as chairman. And then we had the changes of the Northern Alliance of Councils. So this next probably 6 months, as we get LawMac as a standalone entity and a organisation that actually their champions waste management, as well as also the resource recovery throughout Northern Queensland, regional Queensland, we will actually see a lot more opportunities for our council and the future. So, you know, it is sort of something that I'm quite passionate about, and even though my intention is once LawMac stands as a standalone organisation, I actually intend to step down as chairman and let the new organisation then sort of go forward. But at this stage, it is sort of something that is a lot of value.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Smith, then Councillor Kirkland.
Probably just a comment. I just thought the annual membership fee, $18.62, is fairly cheap to be a member. They've got 54 members. So they don't employ so it's all voluntary, all the secretary or treasurer or whatever?
The secretary is actually is funded from that membership, but only on a part-time basis. And one of the successes, and this is part of that restructure, is we didn't want to go to a group that became too top-heavy, that we've kept it very lean. That is one of the reasons why, a bit later, we've got a request for some of the executive workshops, is that the executive and the members there, part of it is that when a LawMac meeting is hosted, the host council provides those opportunities to host the meeting, and that the executive members actually do have to sort of impose on the mayor and councils to actually have to sort of travel to those meetings. But at the other end, it's not like WAMA there, where it's thousands of dollars every year to be part of, like sort of some of the other organisations that we have in local government that are 20, 30, 50,000. This is very, very lean, but it does come with that little bit of pressure there that there is an expectation that those members do contribute in one way or the other. And so far it's been very successful over the many years. At the early days, I did attend a lot of the LawMac meetings just as an observer, but it was just to actually learn and those networks. So it's been around for a while, and I think the future is looking great, particularly as we go into this whole new world of waste reduction and a circular economy.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. If I might, I think that these industry-specific advisory committees are actually quite valuable, certainly when we've got other points of view coming in, as well as the opportunity to make that, as you've pointed out, Councillor Fisher, the industry-specific lobbying that can occur from such an organisation. So I support this motion.
Okay. Councillor, if there are no further questions, could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that? Move Councillor Latcham, second Councillor Smith. Put that. Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Moving on to item 9.9, the Fitzroy River Water Specialised Item Supplier Request. Thank you, Jason. And Councillor Kirkland is the portfolio chair.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. This report should be fairly self-explanatory. Some of you have seen similar reports from Fitzroy River Water in the past. Essentially, we've identified 4 suppliers there that are listed in Table 1 that we would seek to have council adopt as specialist suppliers for those items listed, and the justification for that decision is provided in the table as well. Overall, though, the reason why we do this is to streamline some of the procurement process on the basis that either we've typically exhausted the known options of a similar type of supplier or a similar type of product elsewhere, or we err on the side of trying to standardise to make decisions that essentially improve our ability to have the safe and reliable services that we're charged with delivering. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about those, happy to discuss
Thanks very
further.
much, Jason. I hand to the portfolio chair, Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment really about contract renewals and tendering processes, that we've got policy in place that where we will be reviewing annually. That is the case with this, that this is not a permanent, ongoing, fixed option here. That I'm wondering whether in the recommendation we could capture that is it necessary, because we've got the policy around it. It might not be necessary to put it in there.
It's got to come back to the table, some of these, Councillor Kirk.
So every year.
Every year, Roscoe, sorry. He's not with us. Ross. Oh,
Oh, sorry,
oh,
Drew.
Drew's there too, sorry. I mean,
Just through the chair, Councillor Kirkland, once you've resolved for a sole supplier, it's just the one time.
Once off.
For these particular ones.
Just for 12 months?
No. For the life of the use of that supplier, or the term of the contract that you agree to. So if you agree to if the term on that supply is 3 years, then a renewal process would happen in 3 years' time, that they would come back again. But generally, if you're looking to standardise a particular technology, you really stick with that technology until a new, a renewal process comes up for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor, if there are no further questions, I'll seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that resolution. Move Councillor Kirkland, second Councillor Latcham. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.10, annual policy review, purchasing policy, acquisition of goods and services. Drew, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. So this is the annual review of our purchasing policy. Under the regulation, we're required, or Council is required to adopt a purchasing policy, and then we're also required to review it annually. So you can see the policy there with the proposed changes using track changes. In summary, what they are just the addition of sustainable procurement, whole of life cost and supplier definitions, reference to sustainable procurement in environmental protection as part of 5D, which is something that comes out of the regulation, which are the purchasing principles, and then or the contracting principles. And then there's some other minor updates you can see in there with track changes. Happy to take any questions, Mayor.
Reasonably straightforward, that one, Drew. Any questions, councillors? If not, I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Mathers, I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.11, fraud and corruption risk checklist annual presentation. Kassine is here, and John. Good morning, Kassine. Would you like to present the report, please?
Good morning. I remember to turn my mic on this time. So, good morning, Mr Chair, councillors. Presented to you today is the final risk register in the series required to be presented annually for adoption. The fraud and corruption risk checklist has been reviewed by management, and any proposed changes have been identified in red text. One new risk has been identified this period and added to the register, with the majority of the other changes relating to documented controls being minor owing to operational changes. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, Christine, questions, councillors? Councillor Rutherford?
Not a question, just to say thank you for a really good report. Yeah.
Okay, Christine, that's probably an indication of a good report is when you don't have too many lights on. And again, I'd echo those comments by Councillor Rutherford. And could I seek a mover and a seconder with the officer's recommendation? Move Councillor Smith. Yeah, seconded Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Christine. Moving on to item 9.12, fees and charges 2021-22 amendments, and hand over to Marnie. Thanks very much, Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, everyone. So you will recall, councillors, that we presented the fees and charges in its entirety to the 8th of June meeting. There has been some subsequent changes that have been made to some of those fees and charges as were identified in the report, mostly to do with the Heritage Village and also to do with the regional cemeteries. These were detailed in the background of the report, just identifying what those changes were, as well as a summary attached in the following pages. So happy to take any questions in relation to those.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Wickerson, then Councillor Latcham, and Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Wickerson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to propose an alternate motion, especially with Heritage Village fees. Now, we did workshop this a couple of weeks ago, I think, and some councillors had to leave, so because it was a longer workshop, so not everyone was privy to some of the conversation at the end of that. $5 per person for adults did come up, but I think there was a range of opinions around that. So just going back a bit, it's my ambition to make the place a lot more activated, and activation needs a lot more people. We've tried at $15, and I think we were making a profit of $24,000 or so with 6,000, give or take, visitors per year, which is fairly poor. A range of reasons, marketing, a range of reasons. So I sometimes get a bit envious. I look at the zoo with 40,000 visitors a year, free to get in. It certainly doesn't devalue the product at all. And we're very proud of the Botanic Gardens and the zoo. But while we're charging even $5 to get in, it sort of limits what other optional costs or optional services we could offer down the track. You can't charge even a minimal fee of $5, which in my opinion will only just cut that. It won't increase the numbers of people, it'll just cut the profit at the end of the day, which wasn't much to start with. So technically go from $24,000 down to 8 or so, which isn't going to achieve what we want in the long run. So I think to activate it, to get hopefully ourselves 40,000 people through, which not only is great to activate the village, but it also gets the attention of this table as far as future funding goes, but also other levels of government too. If it's busy, we know that more people gets the attention of politicians when we're looking for grants and funding, whereas maybe 6,000 visitors a year does not. The difficult with making some fees and charges for these optional things at this stage is that we don't have that product ready to go. We have some things, and just looking at what other rates were on there, guided tours, that's something we can do right this minute. We've got guides out there. We need to sort the volunteers out and work with them to make sure that that's a consistent service. But we have volunteers there now that can run costume guided tours around. We have vehicles that we could have optional rides on. So if it's free to get in, right this minute we could put a price on how much a ride on the coach or a vintage car or a bus or whatever would be. Other things, we still don't know what they are yet. There's a lot of opportunities, the low-hanging fruit, if you like, that we could get online very quickly with minimal costs for that. Not huge infrastructure things, just a bit of tidying up, we could do that. But there's other things we probably haven't identified yet, and I'd like to have some time to work with volunteers on what that might be into the future, and that'll, I hope, continue to evolve so that we do ultimately get the place fully activated. But at this stage, we're looking to open the village very quickly. I think it's Monday week. John might correct me. 5 weeks, 5 days, 5 minutes. The 5th, okay, that's the date. No, we should have rehearsed that. So very soon. So we need to initially establish what the adult entry is. So I'd like to propose that is $0. so free entry for adults. The line further, I think it's line 7 about school group tours with a guide and a tram. I think that's a bit cheap. Just with the guide, $10 per person, but if you're going to throw in a ride on something or other out there, maybe that should be $15. I don't think we should undersell those optional extras, but we want to get as many people as possible through the gate to activate the place. There was a comment made earlier on that if we go to free now, it's a high risk because you can never go from free back to a charge if that fails, and it is a risk. We've done that before. We've done that with garden waste. Yeah, it's never popular to do that, but it's not impossible either. So I think it's worth trying this. We tried it with a charge for a number of years. I don't expect that $5 is going to achieve what we're setting out to do. So I think let's have a go at making it free and then be really creative and put some effort into what those optional things could be to activate the place. Yeah.
Councillor Wickerson, would you think a trial of that would be reviewed in 12 months' time to see how...
Yeah, happy, Mr Mayor, to make that a 12-month trial, and that'll put some motivation back onto me and the volunteers and staff to really knuckle down and come up with some creative ways to value add to that.
Yep. And are you suggesting that the other minimum with 10, a tram and a guide, increase as well? Did you mention that then?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd add, well, group tours, if it's free to get in, you can't very well charge just because there's more people. That was there, and I think that's an attractant to get groups through, so free is free. But, so line 7, maybe we make line 6 a school group with a guide, certainly $10, but if it's with a guide and a ride,
So change that
15.
from 7 to 10 and 10 to 15?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. 7 to 10 and 10 to 15, and free otherwise. And I think it's a bit premature yet to be talking about optional things. I think that's what we need to put a bit more work into.
On that.
Yeah. But that said, I think those extra things, if there's going to be some sort of ticketing, you need to have a bit of uniformity so that it's a bit like the show. You buy a ride ticket, ride ticket thing that's has the same value, and some things might be 2 of those, I don't know, but that's some of the nuts and bolts we need to work out as we go.
Okay. Righto, I'll see how the light's on. So, Councillor Kirkland, were there any questions to Councillor Wickerson's moment, or do they have further?
Yes.
Councillor Kirkland?
Yes, I do have a question, and probably through you, Mr Chair, would need to go to someone from Advance Rockhampton. So if Greg's able to respond to this, that would be great. I just wanted to ask if not having an entry fee excludes us from being able to advertise or any funding applications. It's been commented before that we can't apply for certain things because we don't have an entry fee up at the zoo. So I'm just asking if that same thing would apply to Heritage Village.
Okay, Greg, can you answer that one?
Yes, Mayor and councillors. Councillor Kirkland, I'm not aware of that. The conversation I think that I've mentioned a lot is more the paid product and working with travel agents from a paid product point of view. They won't advertise the product or take the product on board for those reasons that they can't get a commission from that paid product. As far as applying for grants, it's not necessarily one that I've come across that unpaid product can't get grants, because we've gotten grants for the zoo in the past.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Latcham and Councillor Smith and Councillor Rutherford, or Councillor Rutherford?
Mine's probably separate.
Councillor Latcham, did you?
Yeah, just a quick one, just to say I do support the notion of free entry, and the user pays added services just like the zoo has. As for the numbers that you've suggested, that's here or there, I guess. So fully supportive of it.
Councillor
Yeah, just
Smith?
a question, Mr Mayor. Just below that it says, note all prices exclude special events, school holiday activities, etc. So we haven't set a price for those at all? Like, is it a separate price, or and what do we mean by special events?
I think that's to do with wedding money. Is that to do with weddings and?
Yes, that's right. That's where there's already a negotiated entry for something else.
Yeah, whether it's a 21st
or
or
the Heritage
whatever.
Festival or something.
Or something, yeah, there's a
Exclude
special
all
price
that.
for that, yep, and school
just
holidays.
another-
And
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just another question. With Councillor Wickerson, what you're saying, to have it free, and then you get the money out of rides, but for, say, the middle of the week and you have a couple of tourists turn up, they get in free, but we wouldn't be having rides all the time in those circumstances. Are you really talking about school tours or, you know, group tours?
Yeah. Well, on those days, ideally you would have consistent service provided, so we would need to get more volunteers on top of what we've got now, but ideally you'd have those optional things available consistently. If they weren't available, well, it's still free to get in, and you have a self-guided tour. You can walk around all day for free, but if you wanted to have a ride on something or get your photo taken in costume or whatever, that would be the paid part of it. Yeah. But ideally you'd have it available when the museum is open.
Yeah. So just another question, Mr Mayor. Just when I went to that volunteers talk, the gist I got was that most volunteers only work till lunchtime. So is that where you're saying we need more volunteers maybe for the afternoon at all, you know?
Yes, we need a lot more volunteers, through you, Mr Chair, sorry. Because I think in tourism, which it is, it's also a cultural place too, you've got to have that consistency. If we're marketing, or say someone comes through and they get the best day of their lives, they get a ride on things, they get their photo taken and, go and watch the blacksmith working and a range of things, and they tell somebody and then the next person comes back and they don't have that, well, then we get some negative feedback. So, and that's a challenge, that we need to get enough people that we can consistently offer that, and we don't want to bite off more than we can chew early. We need to grow that so that we can sustain it.
Yeah. Okay, and I didn't have a chance to look back the opening hours, what we were proposing. Can you remember?
yeah, I think that's a different report. I don't think that's on
Yeah.
this one. We'll take that on note, Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor Rutherford?
Different issue, if I could please, and it's just probably to make sure it hasn't fallen off, but we were also going to look at the standpipes. There was a change in the cost of the standpipes for the water, and we were going to look at that, I thought.
Ross, you have more? Jason?
Through the chair, we got a workshop next Tuesday to go through all the fees and charges, and we can certainly, Jason may have some information for that, but that was following what we understand was council wanting to look at all the, just have refresh to everything, and through that process there may be some others that will be raised as well, which we can then come back to, but now that you've alluded to that one, Jason can raise that one next Tuesday.
Okay, I just didn't want it to fall off.
No,
because it was one that was raised along with these, and we're addressing these, but
But it
not.
didn't come up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's more about due to the fact we're reopening before that workshop, Councillor Rutherford.
Okay, Councillor Latcham?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to address Councillor Smith's concerns about the availability of rides and stuff, if we look at Archer Park Train Museum, they only have it on Sundays from 10 to 1, I think it is all they actually offer the rides. So it just shows that obviously you work out when you're going to make these rides available, and obviously ideally if it could be open all the time, great, but it may be that you lock in certain days and times. Yeah.
Yep. And we put a review in after 12 months? Okay, righto. Righto then. Councillors, if there's no further questions, I'll seek a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Wickerson, second Councillor Latcham. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed?
Can we go into formal debate?
Oh, yes, yep, sorry. Those opposed? Councillor Rutherford? Oh, yeah, sorry. Councillor Wickerson, speak to the motion.
Mr Mayor, I think I've said enough.
Yep. Those in opposed? Councillor Rutherford?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And I certainly understand where Councillor Wickerson is coming from and his passion here. My concern is that, our budgets are really tight, and we compare this to zoo. I'm not sure if we were ever doing the zoo nowadays, we would have made the same decision to have it free. it's historically that way, and it works well that way, and I support that. I'm just not sure that it's the model that we should be copying. Often it's difficult when something is free, whether you undervalue that product. I do have a concern. The information I have is that the likes of TripAdvisor and Bookings.com, those types of sites where a lot of tourists actually go to prior to leaving town to see what's in a place to visit, will not advertise something that's free because they get no commission from it. So I think it reduces the ability to advertise outside of the area, and I think that's really important for the Heritage Village. I also think that once something is free, it is really, really difficult to come back from. I would have preferred maybe to trial the $5 one and see if that had an impact, and then, in a year's time, look after that. But, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Another speaker for the motion, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Your Monday markets is probably a clear identity event that is free, and I'm sure it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for free. It's here its life as it grew. Other things that council does, which are free, the libraries and the like, and it's just part of what there's some things that council does that just has to be free. My concern is if it's not free, is that the market days, you make it $5 for the market days, it might be the death of market days if we go down that pipeline. So I'm very concerned about a $5 fee for market days. I'm concerned about a fee at all, but I think we should be looking at trying to work on the positives and trying to find activities and experiences that people will love and be happy to pay $5, $10 for. If it's a morning tea with a Billy Damper and Billy Tea and Damper, if we could do that consistently, that might be a product, amongst other things, that people are happy to pay for. But to get entry into it free is where I'm heading with that one. Thank you.
Okay, speakers against, Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Acknowledging what you've said there, Councillor Latcham, but also noting that each of those examples that you gave are very different from the product that we have at the Heritage Village. Your Monday Markets is certainly a market in its own right. It's not necessarily, opening up the opportunity to explore and go through and be educated things that we have out at the Heritage Village, and picking up there on what Councillor Rutherford said about the value of the product. I used the illustration once before about if we put a couch outside our house and we put free, take it away, it sits there for months, and the minute we put a dollar figure on it, it gets stolen because it's all of a sudden valuable. And that is no different to this product. We need to make sure that we put a value on it to, of course, be advertised in those TripAdvisor and other magazines. We want to make sure that we're reaching all of the people who are touring through our city to have already looked through those magazines and targeted the Heritage Village as one of their stop goes. The other thing is I've continued to advocate, and I will continue to do so, that to provide everything for free for our community is not sustainable. We need to obviously look after those assets and manage those assets. There's ongoing costs involved as we need to augment them when they're popular and that sort of thing. And I think that we're seeing the pain of that up at the zoo and the botanical gardens. So we've got free facilities, we've got free Kershaw Gardens, there's so many other wonderful places that people can visit for free, certainly Mount Archer, and it goes on. And I think that just a $5 fee is a nominal fee to pay. It just sets that precedent, which I think is important. I'd like to go back to the original, as it were, proposed by our officers. And another reason for the second point there that you've pulled out with the schools, I'm concerned that we're going to ostracise the smaller schools from making this an affordable event that they can go out and enjoy by putting that price up per person. Putting that price up just that little bit is going to stop the schools from being able to continue to enjoy the facility. It previously has been a very big capture of the schools, and I don't want to see that get less just because we've tried to put the price up. Councillor Wickerson, absolute respect, and I agree that we want to activate this area. We want to see more people come to the village, but I tend to agree more so with Councillor Rutherford here that we need to trial that $5 and keep the precedent of a charge for the Heritage Village moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Any further speakers for? If not, I'll go to the mover, Councillor Wickerson, to wrap up.
Yep. No, thanks, Mr. Chair. The other three places that we mentioned, Kershaw Gardens and Mount Archer and the library and Botanic Gardens and Zoo, again, I look on and just see how popular those places are with envy. You know, all council facilities, of course, but I would love those same, even to get close to those numbers at the Heritage Village. I take your point that, Councillor Kirkland, that you know, we can't give away things for free, and I agree with that notion. But I think this is probably more clever marketing, that it's the only thing that we're making free is to get in the gate. So it's $15 a head now. I'm confident, and it's going to take a lot of work, I'm confident of that too, that we could at least match that $15 per head in other ways and probably exceed that. If you're getting, even if it was $10 that we get on each person, but you double the number of people, the math works out that we're still going to be a little bit better off, probably a lot better off. So I think if we're aiming to activate it and to make it busy and attract funding from other sources, I think that's why we make it free to get in the gate. I do take the point about TripAdvisor and other marketing, and it's always been a bit of a sore point from my view that, you know, we spend considerable money on one-off events. You know, I won't mention them, but you know, major festivals that we have, lots and lots of money, whereas the marketing budget for Heritage Village has been $20,000 or $25,000 a year. So it should be no surprise that we're not getting the numbers through the gate. So obviously we need to look at that other than just a free entry to get more people through. And I think the cost recovery will be there, but it'll be in a different form. So you know, stand by my first recommendation.
Okay, councillors, that concludes debate. I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's lost. Oh, you're in favour, so casting vote. I'll have to support the original recommendation, councillors, so that motion's lost and we'll revert back to the original officer's recommendation. My thoughts were that we review this in 12 months' time, get the village open again, and then work on some of those proposals and how we can better utilise that going forward. And the comments were coming back from moving to an entry fee from a free proposal, something there. Do you want to register against? Yeah, we'll record the vote. So it was. Could I just get those?
Sorry, Mayor, just to clarify, that original one is actually adopted at $15, not the $5. Okay, because that's actually, that original motion is referring to the schedule within the report. So when you go down into the report,
yep,
gone too far. It's actually saying that the adults are 15. Is that correct? How I'm reading it, Amani? No. 5. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, we're back to that. So we'll just go back to the motion that was lost. And the people that voted in favour, myself, Councillor Mathers, in favour of the first one. The first one, yeah. Sorry, yep. Myself, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor. Oh, sorry. I'm having one of those days. Those who voted in favour were Councillor Fisher, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Smith and Councillor Latcham. Sorry, councillors. And those that voted against were Councillor Mathers, Councillor Kirkland, Councillor Rutherford and myself, and I used my casting vote to...
So technically we didn't call a division, so there was no division called.
No, so recording all the names.
So you...
No, sorry. So it's just that people wanted to record
just
their...
who wants to record.
No, not after it was... Okay. Okay, So it's been called, a division's been called, so... Sorry, councillors, a bit confusing there. Okay, so we move on to the original officer's recommendation, and can I seek a mover?
I have a question.
Yep,
first,
Councillor Rutherford.
please. So I'm just not sure why, where number 6 says group minimum of 10 with transport, no guide, is $7. So why are they paying extra than the $5 per person?
Transport. Transport, is it?
So can someone...
Yep. John, would you be able to answer that one, please?
Yes, through the chair, the premium from $5 to $7 per person, so a premium of $2, is we actually provide transport around the site.
Oh, okay.
And the next one about school groups is the reason that we don't, with school groups, is that a tram and a guide, they're then paying a premium of $5 over the just standard entry price of $5.
All right, so that transport is basically the tram.
Yeah, and then if we needed to get something else, we would do that as well.
Okay.
And it's to stop them having to walk the whole site.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to the original motion? Move Councillor Kirkland, second Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Opposed. Councillor Latcham, you want to record it? Councillor Smith? Record. Councillor Fisher, record their vote against the original recommendation. Thanks, Councillor. Sorry for that. We had some confusion around that, but we managed to get there. Thank you. We'll move on to item... and Councillor Smith, sorry. Yeah. Item 9.13, the Budget Summary Management Report for the period ending the 31st of May. Thanks very much, Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So presented to councillors today is the Summary Budget Management Report for the period ended 31st of May. Attached are the income statement and the key indicator graphs. Total operating revenue is sitting at 97% of the budget compared to a result of being around 91.7% on the monthly basis. This is contributed by the rates and charges being at 99% of the budget. Grants and subsidies are behind budget at 68%, but that was due to receipt of the financial assistance grant, which has now been paid in June. The interest revenue is ahead of budget at 98% as well. Operating expenditure is at 86% of the revised budget, with employee costs and contractors and consultants both under budget at 85% and asset operational under budget at 84%. As councillors are aware, we have run through the May monthly budget review as well, and we'll be presenting that to the special meeting of council on Thursday for the budget to adopt some amendments to the 2021 actual budget. So that will impact on where the results end up for the financial year. Our capital income is sitting at 80% of the revised budget, and expenditure is at 65%. We saw May reach spend levels of 9.6 million through the month, and as we discussed last week, we're forecasting that our capital budget will end the year at about 120 million in spend, which is a reduction down from our original budget of over 170 million and our revised budget of 153 million that was adopted in February. Our total investments are sitting at 64.3 million for the end of May, and our loans are sitting at 121.7. But as we communicated last week, the loan borrowings for this financial year have been drawn down as of last Friday, so that balance will now change and it will show a very different amount for the June figures. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Marnie. Very comprehensive report and up-to-date information. Councillors, any questions through the chair to Marnie? If not, I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Fisher. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thanks, Marnie. Item 9.14, the Regional Council of Mayors membership invitation. pretty self-explanatory, Councillor. There's one where there's council's been invited, and myself as the mayor, to join an organisation that's looking at somewhat trying to challenge what the southeast corner of mayors have been doing for a number of years, and basically looking for opportunities to work in collaboration to advocate on behalf of the Northern Queensland. So we're stepping out of another number of other organisations, so funding-wise it should be cost neutral going forward, but it's just one that I'm supportive of, and I believe it's something there that we need to be in the tent rather than being out of it, and it's something that we've, as a council, been that direction of more collaboration and advocacy, taking our region forward the best way we can. So on that, I'd seek questions, or Councillor Rutherford.
Happy to move, Mr.
Happy
Mayor.
to move. Seconder. Councillor Fisher. If there are no questions, I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.15, council delegation to the CEO. Thanks very much, Alyssa.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. This report is seeking council's approval to delegate various powers under the Land Act 1994 to our Chief Executive Officer. Essentially, it's been triggered by an update that has come out from LGAQ, and you'll see in attachment 2, we've marked up in red the differences to our existing delegation register under that piece of legislation, and the changes that that review has brought about. There's 3 different, powers. They're quite procedural in nature, such as registration of leases and the like. I'm happy to take any questions, should there be any.
Councillors, questions? No lights on? Happy to move Councillor Smith to seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 9.16, the Local Government Association Queensland Annual Conference, 25th to the 27th of October 2021, Mackay. Councillors, the recommendation is that we take 2 councillors with voting rights to the Mackay Entertainment Centre, and that the councillors be delegates with voting rights at that on behalf of the Rockhampton Regional Council. There's no there is an application for certificate of service submitted to Councillor Fisher, which is a great achievement, Councillor Fisher, and I suggest you be one of the delegates that we attend the meeting and submit the conference motion prior to any motions prior to the 16th of August. Councillor Fisher, lights on.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think that this conference is very important to Rockhampton, and that collaboration with our neighbouring councils. And I know that when the conference was on in Gladstone, it was only myself and Councillor Swarton that didn't attend. But I think this one there, I think it's fairly important that yourself, as Mayor, and myself attend, but also the offer to other councillors to attend. I think it would be very good just visually to see that we're in support of our neighbouring council, and also there just shows that support of regional Queensland. And I think with that, I know as Mayor you will be whisked off to that many sub-meetings during that event, and I think it would be very, very good if fellow councillors, even if it's not for the whole conference, but could actually attend today's conference. But I think this one is very, very important for just being part of regional Queensland and being one of the key players. So I'd like to sort of move that Mayor and myself to attend, plus also the opportunity for other councils.
Yeah, look, councillors, I would attend, but I'm keen to see if there's anyone else would be interested in it. I'm very mindful of our budget going forward. I think we probably need to look in-house a little bit more this upcoming year. I understand that the local, we spend a lot of money in the local government association space, so it's prudent that we do have good representation there, but just being mindful if there's other conferences or things there that we may normally go on, if we can start to lead by example and start to look in-house a bit more as we go through with this budget into the year. So if another councillor wished to attend this one, then they may need to step back from other conferences, so to speak. But look, I'm happy to be nominated, and Councillor Fisher. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I would like to go, and I think I don't put my hand up for ones far away. I think we sent 4 last year to Gold Coast. With Mackay, we can actually drive, which saves money on airfares as well. And I think with the dialogue we've opened up with last Bowen Basin Mining Club lunch, we actually sat with Mackay councillors and opened up a lot of dialogue and discussion, which was very interesting in a lot of ways. So I'd really like to go, and I think being so close that we should really support it as well. If we had a function here in Rockhampton, we would expect to see Mackay councillors as well.
Councillors, I understand we've got 3 new councillors on the council as well, and this conference, the LGAQ one, is very important to both network but get an understanding of local government and the issues that we're dealing with. So it's one that I wouldn't oppose new councillors attending. Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As soon as I saw this come through some months back, I ear-tagged it in my diary, regardless of whether or not there was an opportunity to have my name put here today. I fully intended on going to this function. I went last year. I think it's a great opportunity to see the new innovation that's being introduced by other councils right across the board. It's a great opportunity for networking and meeting people, so long as you take the time and make the effort to do that. So I was more than happy to pay for it myself if I needed to. I was just putting that out there that I was going.
Yep.
Regardless.
Sorry, Councillor. Yes, and again, I think with the portfolio from councillors, there's great understanding of what the improvements are in other councils that we could possibly introduce into our region as well. So, especially in the areas of water and waste, they're big cost items, and we need to be mindful of the innovation and technology changes going forward in that space as well. But learn from other councils about what's happening in their regions as well, about how we can position ourselves going forward with regards to that. Councillor Latcham, then Councillor Mathers. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Fully agree with what's been said here today. I was fortunate enough with Councillor Kirkland to go to the LGAQ last year, and I do believe it was very beneficial. It was a starting point to understand more about local government, and fully supportive of that. I guess I've had to, in the last 24 hours, think about what's important, and we do only have a limited amount of funds to go away for the full 12 months, and obviously I've got to prioritise what is going to be more valuable in my role of waste and recycling portfolio, and there will be something that comes to the next council meeting that I believe is probably more, I know is more important than the LGAQ. As much as this is very important, I do, and obviously it'll be presented at that time, I've obviously had to work out what things do I have to make compromises, and what's going to work and what's not. While this would be ideal, for especially there's going to be a lot of challenges in waste and recycling in the next 12 months, with the state not continuing the advance levy in next year, but possibly to add on to what Councillor Fisher said, maybe there's an opportunity to at least represent the region at the gala dinner. It might be, if that's something that meets the appetite of the table, where at least I'm up there with the rest of the councillors who are up there. I'll leave that one to the table at the time. But that's something, if we're looking at supporting one another in the regional councils, then I'm more than happy to have that considered.
Councillors, if I put through the chair,
yeah, you're right,
it'd be it would be ideal to have all the councillors who will be attending, no matter what part of the conference it is, to do it today. So you get early bird registration, and also the bookings can be made.
Yep.
And as they changed the policy from 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, it requires the council approval.
Yep. And again, Councillor, we have your budget, so just be mindful. We don't want to exceed that budget this year, and even look to reduce that. I've especially made an effort not to step outside the region as best I possibly could as the Mayor, but I believe there's some times when we need to represent our region, and this is probably one that we will be recognised if we have more people down. So, Councillor Latcham, are you?
As I said, I had to make compromises. I won't be able to attend the full conference, but if the table, it meets their appetite to do.
Councillor Latcham's name.
Okay, so we'll put Councillor Latcham's name there. Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr Chair. I'd just like to say, as a new councillor, I was interested in going to this just to get a lay of the land. Unfortunately, I will be unavailable to attend.
No worries, thank you. Again, I think that's probably next year's one. If you have any advice, it's probably worth extending that opportunity to go to one at some time in the next couple of years. Councillor Fisher.
I'm happy if there's no further debate to actually move as...
Okay, move Councillor Fisher. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kirkland. We'll put those in favour. Those opposed? Carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors.
Move. Mayor, can I just ask a question? Has Councillor Kirkland had the opportunity to actually be appointed on one of the water advisory committee as with LGAQ? Because
I haven't seen anything come through, Councillor Fisher.
It would be
make some inquiries.
It would be really worthwhile, because I know that at this conference there's going to be a number of streams of sub-meetings, and it was sort of something that I was on during my time, and I think it would be very beneficial for us if Councillor Kirkland
we'll make those arrangements if there's possible to in the background there about that. It's prudent though, and thanks for raising that, Councillor Fisher. It's worth having a look. Okay, councillors, moving on to item 9.17, the Mount Morgan Water Supply Security. Thank you, Jason. Oh, you have a conflict in this one, Councillor Smith? This is the one you have the conflict with? Yep. Okay, thanks very much, Jason.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors, I know you haven't had a lot of time to read this report, and apologies for that, but I'd like to take a bit of an opportunity to step through the content of the report with you. It is fairly simple and self-explanatory, but if I start with just the commentary section first, the first paragraph is very self-explanatory. We're at the point now where we need to increase the water supply security for Mount Morgan. It's just an important part of ensuring that community can actually be sustainable. The evidence of the last few months has indicated that even that is potentially at risk, let alone whether or not there's potential for that community to grow and develop. So that's a really key part of that first paragraph. The second and third paragraphs step through the reasons perhaps why we've gotten to this point. And we really haven't seen significant rainfall up in that catchment area really since sort of the second part of 2017, when the dam was then actually full. And as you know, as we've slowly worked through the provisions within the drought management plan and eventually reached level 6, which is an emergency supply level of water restriction, we've then moved on to implementing a contingency supply arrangement, which is the use of tankers to deliver water from Gracemere to Mount Morgan. Some information is provided there. You can see the expenditure to date. It's a very significant amount of money. As you are aware, we're working through quite closely with the Queensland Government, the relevant water department, as well as the Queensland Treasury Corporation, in terms of seeking some degree of financial support for that expenditure. So we're working through that process, and that will continue as long as is required to ensure that the community has a supply of drinking water for their needs. So the final paragraph there of the commentary section, again, you'll all be familiar with the fact that we met with the community and some representatives of the community back in April. It was actually a very positive meeting in many respects. It gave us the opportunity to communicate quite clearly and bidirectionally with those community representatives, and they made their thoughts and feelings quite clear. and obviously post that meeting, council made a commitment to move forwards and complete some work, which is generally in line with what you're receiving today. So the background information there in this report, again, I'll just step through that really briefly. It's important to actually capture some of this context. Some councillors won't be too familiar with the Regional Water Supply Security Assessment that was published in 2018. That's part of a suite of very, very similar analyses that the Queensland Government championed, and those analyses were done in collaboration with the various different regional council water service providers. And so we had quite a close level of involvement in that. The outcomes of that Regional Water Supply Security Assessment are quite clear, and I've actually included some information there for you that in this instance, based on meeting demand of approximately 380 megalitres per year, the historical data and the modelling associated with that analysis indicated that the likelihood of a water supply failure occurring for a period of greater than 1 month was less than 1 in 100 years. So again, that's a statistical analysis. It's a theoretical consideration. The reality is we've seen a water supply failure happening now, and it's certainly longer than 1 month, and it could be obviously several months, which simply means that, again, those statistics are a guide. We've got a real-world situation now that we need to manage. The contingency...
Jason, could I just take a question first?
Jason, sorry, just before you go too far on then. So we've basically had 2 failures in under 20 years. Do we know do we have records when prior to that there was a failure?
Good question, Councillor. The records that we have are really very scant, and part of that is because when the dam wall was raised in the late 1990s, that was probably really the first time that we actually managed to get hold of really reliable storage level data. And you could almost argue that in part the supply failure that occurred in the early 2000s was in part due to the fact that we hadn't really had the opportunity to fill the new larger dam capacity up to the extent that might have helped get through those years. Nonetheless, that was an extremely dry period all around most of Queensland, and so the likelihood was that there potentially was always going to be a water supply, or very close to a water supply failure back then as well. Yeah. So a very difficult question to answer based on very limited data.
I figured, it's a bit like floods. We'd had sort of 1 every 20 years, and then all of a sudden 3 in 10, so I just, was curious.
And through the Chair, what that does indicate, though, is that it indicates the reliability of that statistical analysis is probably quite poor because we've got a limited data set available. So,
Yep. Okay, thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Look, in that Regional Water Supply Security Assessment and in some other reports that Council may or may not be aware of, the contingency arrangement of tankering water was always identified as the most likely contingency arrangement for an emergency water supply scenario. And again, we've known that was the case, which is why it's proven to be relatively straightforward for us to implement that. However, and as you see in the text there in that paragraph, whilst this might be an acceptable option for a very short-term basis, it's clearly not something that can be sustainable long-term. And again, touching on Councillor Rutherford's point, if this ends up becoming slightly more the norm rather than the exception, then it's certainly not an acceptable arrangement for Mount Morgan. So I guess getting to the main part of the report itself, councillors, we've discussed and have previously workshopped some of the options for increasing the water supply security in Mount Morgan. The table number 1 there in the report lists those in quite brief detail. You could probably write a very long separate report on every single one of these options, and I think the purpose of today is not necessarily to go there, but I want to make sure that councillors are clear on what each of those 6 options listed in table 1 generally represent, because it's important to just get a little bit of that understanding now so that when we move to the next table and then the final table associated with the multi-criteria comparative analysis, that you then are looking at that analysis with some reasonable understanding of what those 6 options actually entail. it's very easy for me to stand here knowing probably much more in-depth detail about those 6 options and be thinking that you're aware of those as well. So what I would suggest is that if there's a need for a little bit of clarification or questioning of any of those 6 options now, it might be worth spending a moment or two on that. Perhaps you do understand them very well. I hope that's the case.
Probably one question to you, Jason, is the number 1, the 9 Mile dam would I know there's a huge cost to do that one, but would the catchment be a wider catchment and more reliable than what the number 7 dam is?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's a good question. The size of the catchment, and the numbers do escape me, but it's significantly greater than the upper D catchment. It's, I think, maybe in the order of 5 to 6-fold larger. I would add, though, that it generally is a fairly similar catchment with respect to the climatic events that then influence the rainfall that falls in those catchments. And part of that catchment is what supplies water to the Fletcher Creek weir. And so we generally have a fairly good understanding of, if you like, the frequency and the volume of flows that pass down Fletcher Creek. Suffice to say that, yes, it's a larger catchment area, but again, it's likely to be limited with respect to, those broader climate events and drought conditions are essentially going to make that catchment behave like all of the catchments in that near and local area.
Thanks, Jason. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Jason, I think the Fletcher Creek area is high alkaline. If the dam was built at 9 Mile Creek, would it be likely to be high alkaline as well?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm probably not best placed to answer that completely at this stage. However, we know that some of the water quality that's prevailing as Fletcher's Creek is interrelated with the groundwater quality there as well. So, and obviously the prevailing geology of that area immediately around Fletcher Creek might be slightly different to some of the other upper parts of that catchment area. I don't think anyone's really looked too closely into that, but when you do construct a storage dam, if it's mostly filled via surface runoff, typically that water will be a slightly better quality than if it's significantly influenced by groundwater. But again, it'll be a function of whatever that geology is upstream of any new dam site. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, just whilst the water levels are down, can I just ask a question? Is it going to be dredged and cleaned out whilst that's at its low level? I see you nodding, so the answer to that is...
Yeah, Councillor Kirkland, through the chair, we are certainly looking at that option. But what you probably might not realise is that even the scope to do that right now isn't as significant as you might realise, partly because whilst the storage itself is perhaps down around that 6 to 7% mark at the moment, there are still some areas which aren't particularly easy to access. And so the best value for money in digging out or excavating the dam is to do it around some of the lower levels, which again are still quite wet and still quite difficult to access. That's where you'll get the best value for money from removing additional material that's accumulated or simply has always been there. So we're certainly looking at that opportunity. Once this decision is made, I guess, then we'll be in a position to consider exactly to the extent that we go ahead with some of that work. It won't essentially bring us new water resource because, again, that sort of becomes redundant if it rains significantly and the dam fills up. We might see some slight improvement in water supply security, but it'd be so incremental that it'd hardly be worth doing.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, just if I may, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I acknowledge that it's not going to necessarily give us any more water. However, I just wanted to highlight it whilst we were here with that conversation. It's a question that's come up in the community, and it's good to have you answer that today. And I can see, looking at what you've presented here to us, that there's a clear indication of two options, and so I'll let you continue, but just to say that I think this is a discussion here happening today that I'm excited to be having. I think we should have had it a long time ago.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford?
Mr Mayor, just to follow on from the dredging of the dam area there, and you said you're likely to go ahead with that?
If it's completed, it'll actually probably more along the lines of clearing out rubbish or built-up vegetation, which has the potential to cause problems for us if it were to flow through and foul up some of our existing infrastructure or accumulate in areas where we don't want it. So there's the opportunity to actually do some sort of cleaning up and overall maintenance of some of those areas now that they're accessible.
Which is fabulous to hear that in itself, but I was just curious, given that I think our quote for Murray, to clean up Murray and Yeppen was $1 million, have we got that budgeted for?
I'm not sure, Councillor, and through to Jason, what type of dollar figures were you?
I don't anticipate it would cost anywhere near $1 million, but again, that's something that we're not, we haven't been focusing strongly on that at the moment, but I suspect we're going to get plenty of an opportunity in the coming months as the water storage level continues to decline to get in there and survey and work out exactly what we can do once some of the currently still wet areas become accessible.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Back to the report, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chair. Again, just for the sake of the exercise, you can see those 6 options: the 9 Mile Creek Dam, the augmentation of number 7 dam, which is associated with some potential modifications to the dam structure itself, which would be normally done and will be done as a part of our dam safety compliance requirements, albeit the deadline we have for that is 2035. So it's not something we're required to do immediately. Augmentation of Fletcher Creek Weir, the use of treated mine pit water to augment number 7 dam, the construction of a drinking water pipeline, or the construction of a raw water pipeline with or without a hydroelectricity inclusion. So, councillors, the next part of the report talks a little bit about the multi-criteria comparative analysis methodology that's been used in this instance. There are a number of different ways of doing this, but it's essentially a way in which you can try and, as much as possible, create an apples with apples type of comparison between different options based on a range of criteria being considered and based on a scoring methodology that tries to treat those different criteria consistently. So as you can see there in Table 2, and this is by no means an exhaustive list of criteria, but you can see that in general terms we've captured 10 of probably the most significant criteria that would be part of an overall decision-making process, or that would be significant factors to be explored through the development of a detailed business case. But already at this early stage, it's quite clear that if you use some sort of a scoring system, and in this instance it's a simple 1 to 5 scoring scale where 1 indicates a strongly negative rating and 5 indicates a strongly positive rating, that you can score each of the options with respect to those 10 different criteria that are listed. So there's a little bit of a description of what those criteria relate to. I won't step through all of those in detail, but I'm happy to take any questions perhaps at this point prior to moving on to the next part of the report, if there are any.
Questions to Jason on that section? That's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you
Wonderful,
very much.
thank you. Okay, councillors, there's just a brief bit of commentary around some of the previous decisions in this respect, and there have been a number over many years, but I guess in part this is perhaps the most important decision that I think we'll make today with respect to this matter. Budget implications, some brief summary there. As some of you will be aware, there's a line item in the proposed 21-22 council budget that is some money allocated to progressing this work. The legislative context, again, is reasonably simple from the point of view.
Probably back to the budget one though, Jason, that's allocation is only for half of that amount in our budget, or is that for the full allocation, or are we seeking some assistance with a business case?
Yeah, through the chair, the latter there, I believe we'll be seeking some matching funding if we can. So I think there's a $1 million contribution from council at this stage, with the expectation that the overall business case would cost more than that amount. So yeah, and that's obviously something that as soon as we get through today, we'll be communicating with relevant agencies about. Yep.
Yep. See Peter's come online there. Peter, did you want to make comment on that?
Yeah, look, I was just going to make a comment that we do need that. We will be seeking state government funding, and we have to do it in partnership and to align with their framework requirements for this kind of infrastructure. This money will allow us to start the strategic assessment component, but we will need additional funds to do a full business case. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much, Jason.
Yeah, and look, just let's just the context, and again, this is not just my view, this is very much the Queensland Government's view, is the way they see it. You know, we are the water service provider, we have the overall, perhaps the final responsibility for ensuring, you know, water supply meets requirements for Mount Morgan. A little bit of commentary on staffing implications, which I won't speak about. Fair to say that the corporate and operational plans are full of references that relate to this matter, and the conclusion speaks for itself, I think. So if we may then, if perhaps it's time now to just turn to table 3, and happy to step through this. Again, councillors, the point of this is not...
Just sorry, Jason, just a councillor Rutherford question.
No, my question was on the table, so I'm happy to wait for Jason to step through. I thought I'd missed it, but if we're coming back to it, that's fine.
Could we put the table on the screen, if possible? It's a bit...
It's a bit fuzzy.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
All right.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Jason. That allow you to walk through that now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So, councillors, probably the first point to make here is the scores that have been entered into the various cells in the table here, they'll always potentially be a little bit subjective. Today is not necessarily about refining those scores to the nth degree to make sure we're entirely happy with them. Having said that, the purpose of today is to glance at some of those scoring and see the comparisons between the scores for some options versus others. Because at the end of the day, it's the total score based on those 10 different criteria for each of the 6 options that forms the basis of, as much as possible, using the methodology to determine which are the preferred, or which is the preferred option or options. Okay, so it's easy to look at the total scores listed in the far right-hand column and see the outcome, but if you do then just glance across, for example, for criteria number 5, environmental impact or benefit, you can see that the drinking water pipeline and the raw water pipeline have achieved quite positive scores. Now, you might be thinking, oh, why is that? Aren't we going to rip a big trench through half the countryside to get a pipeline up to Mount Morgan? Well, generally speaking, that's not an activity that creates a significant environmental impact, but the positive result there comes from the fact that a drinking water pipeline or a raw water pipeline actually has the potential to totally change the way in which number 7 dam and the Dee River work, right? To the point where the dam as it is right now essentially has killed off stream flows in the Dee River. It doesn't flow. Even if it gets significant rainfall up there, normally it does is it puts a metre of storage on the dam. And there's very little flow downstream of the Dee River. That alone reduces the potential for further remediation of some of the acid-impacted parts of the river. It obviously limits the amount of water that's available for water holes downstream. So there's all sorts of environmental outcomes of a positive nature that are related to trying to return some of that stream flow that the construction and then the raising of number 7 dam has, deteriorated.
Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, thank you, because I'm a little confused now, sorry Jason, in that I thought the drinking water pipeline would feed the reservoirs, it was not going into the dam.
Correct. So, and the reason why that helps the dam storage is that if let's say we're pumping a megalitre of water up from Gracemere each day, then that's water we don't have to take out of the dam.
From the dam.
Which means the dam storage level will generally stay higher, and then with any inflows due to rainfall events, it's much more likely that there'll be spilling events and there'll be downstream flows in the Dee River.
Okay, so that, because my original question was, how come they got the same 4 and 4 when the raw water pipeline, on the face of it, would have given a much better environmental outcome? But I see where you're coming from there, so thank you. Just one more question, and it's about the number 7 dam augmentation, because it scores very high, but I thought we said it didn't actually solve the problem. While it made it better, it didn't solve the problem, and yet when it's scoring at 27, it makes it look like it solves the problem.
Correct, and through the chair, the reason why that is because, again, it's as simple as comparing criteria 10, which is about the likelihood of long-term success, right? And I think that's the point you're alluding to, which I agree, because all it is simply just providing some improvement on our ability to increase the storage volume and therefore slightly increase water supply security. Even with that, did we really think that's likely to be a successful long-term solution? No, because it relies on that same climate dependence of the current dam storage.
Yeah.
But all those other criteria are relatively favourable.
Well, sorry.
No, you're right.
Except that community recreational, it scored the same, basically, but if there's no rain, then there's no recreation in the dam as it goes down. So,
correct.
So I don't see why it scored the same, why it scored high.
Well, 3 is a pretty neutral score on a scale of 1 to 5, so it's not...
It scored 4.
Oh, sorry, where are we looking?
The 7... So, number 2.
Oh, okay, yeah. So actually the reason why that did score higher is because if you... Let's say the solution for that augmentation option was to actually raise the height of the spillway or the dam wall ever so slightly. That meant that essentially the full supply level in the dam is higher. It just means that there's more likelihood that the dam continues to have water for a longer period of time. So that's a beneficial outcome for the recreational users of the dam. Just means that more of the time the dam will have more water in it than what it currently does now. And that's partly because as the dam's shaped like this, that little bit of an increase in storage level right up at the top of the width of the dam is worth as much as that much in the bottom of the dam. So it's a potentially very large improvement in water security and just an increase in the amount of availability of that recreational reserve.
Mr. Mayor, one more, because I'm not sure we're comparing apples with that one. The others are pretty much all apples for apples. That one really only works the same as the dam now, as long as that there's rain in the catchment area. So, and it just extends the life of the dam.
Sorry, could I just say, we have to do that work anyway, isn't that part of the dam management safety?
We do.
It's not really an option to be considered, so really
No, but
it's
I'm worried
irrelevant.
when it scores so high, and if state government or someone is looking at this and they go, oh, well, there's an option, and it's scoring only 1 point below the others, that it becomes an option when we know it's not a viable option.
It could be, and sorry to interrupt, but it's as simple as this. So right now, let's say the dam's at 6%, that equates to about 200 megalitres. If the solution to option number 2 meant that by raising the spillway crest by 300 or 400 millimetres, we got another 300 or 400 megalitres of water, all of a sudden at this time of the year, the dam might hold 500 megalitres instead of 200, which means that we still might be actually using that supply, and it still might be more availability of water for recreational uses. So it's a positive improvement rather than just a neutral one. 3 is a neutral score, 4 is a positive improvement. And it's just for that reason that there is the likelihood that there'll be a greater volume of water there for continued use for recreational activities.
Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I tend to, all of those things are great. The most important ones are community growth and development and the likelihood of a long-term success, not discounting community recreational at all, because that's part of going to contribute to the growth and the development of the community. I come down to options 5 and 6, Jason, and through Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Jason if both of those options have also got benefits of perhaps water reaching other areas other than Mount Morgan out there, and who those people would be and what those areas would be.
Yeah, through the Chair, the criteria number 2, community growth and development, is specifically left generic. So yes, absolutely, and no doubt this will be probably part of what's included in any detailed business case, is to assess what those opportunities are for the 2 different products that are listed there. One's drinking water, one's raw water. There are obviously different implications or different potential uses of those 2 products, and no doubt that will include whoever else might or might not be interested in gaining access to that new infrastructure. So I think that'll be a key part of the business case preparation. Just in the same way as you cast your mind back to the Rookwood Weir project, for example, it was all about, well, okay, who's going to use this water? Who might be interested in, buying it, and so on. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Just probably one from myself is on the project risk for number 5 being much higher than the others. Is there a reason around that, Jason?
Yeah, so the reason why, and let me just explain that the project risk in this instance relates to those aspects associated with the design and the construction of the infrastructure. The reason why the drinking water pipeline has actually scored a slightly lower level of risk.
Higher level, is it? Higher level, it's a 3.
No, it's less negative.
One's on the worst side, 5
Yeah.
on the good side.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah,
Right.
Gotcha. I'm thinking I was in the. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but the reason why I've put that in that regard is that maybe from a slightly selfish point of view, that's what we do, that's what we're familiar with. We have some significant experience when it comes to the design and construction and operation and maintenance of relatively long pipelines, pumps, pump stations, reservoirs and so on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, my bad.
No, that's fine, yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I guess, just looking at the whole thing, I guess the big thing is going to come down to cost, as it always has, and I just fear that if the cost is going to be way too prohibitive, what option do we go with?
There's not. It's keep carting the water until it rains. It's the and continue with that. If the costs aren't, they become too prohibitive and there's no support, that'll be the end result. But I mean, that's why we're going through this process. And in the report, it's saying that that the longer these dry spells continue, and is transporting water, bulk water, a long-term solution, which obviously it's not. And having this report gives us the ability to be able to advocate and lobby to look for a permanent bulk water supply. Thanks, Jason.
Mr Chair, there's still the possibility, although I don't really like to say it, but a detailed business case could be prepared and prepared in collaboration with the Queensland Government, and despite our best efforts of trying to seek funding from different tiers of government, they may simply just say no, business case doesn't stack up. Either council needs to work out what their preferred option is on their own, or the prevailing contingency arrangement is the preferred option. So that's still a possible outcome, although I think I think there's enough potential in certainly the two higher scoring options for there to be some genuine value created in that new infrastructure.
Yep. And that's the process we've committed to the community to undertake. But you're right, Jason, there is that real possibility that could be a potential outcome at the end of the day. Okay, thanks, Jason. Did you want to highlight any more with that report at all?
I don't think so. I think the recommendation is quite clear, and yeah, thanks, councillors.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, Councillor Fisher?
Yeah, and while I've got no issues with what the recommendation is, there's still probably the elephant in the room is what is going to be the end cost per kilolitre to those that reside in that area. And that, I think, is something that we've got to take into consideration as well. You've got a very, very poor community, and the cost of providing that water and the impact that that could have on that community, or the greater of the impact that it could have on the whole of the Rockhampton region. And it's probably the one area there that I think we should also be balancing.
Sorry, if I could counsel through the chair, that'll come out of the business case.
On the business case.
That'll be involved.
Yep.
Yeah, and just briefly through the chair, interestingly, right now, it typically costs between $300,000 and $350,000 per year to operate and maintain the Mount Morgan water treatment plant. So potentially, that is a cost that wouldn't be incurred on an ongoing basis. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Jason. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is there, and the recommendation is that we progress with the business case on options 5 and 6, and we progress that. Could I seek a mover? Move Councillor Rutherford. Seconded Councillor Kirkland. Councillors, is there any debate? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thanks very much, councillors. It's a great outcome. Okay, we still have one more item to be dealt with, two more items in closed session. Thanks very much, Jason. That report really did cover what we were looking for, and very informative. Forgot about, Councillor Smith, welcome back. Okay, councillors, we do have a confidential items on the agenda. Sorry, the notice of motion. So the notice of motion, item 10.1, I'm jumping the gun. Notice of motion from Councillor Fisher to be approved to attend the LawMac meeting, executive meeting in Mackay, 2nd of July 2021. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I read this, Mr Mayor, and I think Councillor Fisher should stay the night. I've driven up and back in one day to a Bowen Basin Mining Club lunch, and 8 hours travelling in one day is too much. And I believe that a one night's accommodation should be included in that as well. So I think that, the fatigue section, like...
We can just do it.
We'll just do that. Don't need to be in there. It's probably just part of the recommendation, councillors. So, Councillor Smith, are you happy to move?
Yeah, so it doesn't need to be in there because everything's got to come to the table now with travelling.
It's about
sorry, there will be a report coming to the next meeting, councillors, where we've got the council-appointed committees or groups that will give that, go through that approval process there for travel.
Yep. Okay. Move Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Latcham. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion's carried. Moving on to... Yeah, we've got the confidential... no questions on notice, no urgent business. Closed session. It's item 14.1, a property matter, that the meeting be closed to the public to discuss the following items considered confidential in accordance with section 254J 3 of the Local Government Regulations 2012 for the reasons indicated. Can I seek a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Mather, seconder Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. And that pursuant of to S511, the council meeting procedures and meeting moves into closed session and the meeting be closed. Move Councillor Fisher, seconded Councillor Smith. I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. The meeting is now.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Okay, we're good to go. Councillors are seeking a mover and a seconder with regards to the officer's recommendation that council authorise the CEO to delegate to enter into a negotiated to purchase of property. Move Councillor Fisher, seconded Councillor Rutherford. We'll put that. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, there be no further meeting, no further items on the meeting today. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and close the meeting. Thank you.
Just if I could.
Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.